Hello everyone, Ceramics by Rachel here. Today I was going to take you through a wee bit of a demonstration, I guess you'd call this, more than a tutorial. Just a wee demonstration on how I make my miniature abstract sculptures. I just thought it'd be a good idea to give you a bit of an insight into how I make them, why I've been making them, what's been inspiring me, the purpose of the different techniques I apply to them and how I do them and how I achieve the overall look of the piece. So I've prepared my board and my ball of clay. I'm also going to be grabbing a reference. This is a previous piece that I actually made a while ago that I haven't been able to fire just yet, but it will do perfectly to guide me through while I make a new one. I'm going to start by separating my clay into all the parts that I need. I do make a point of using two different tools to cut the clay up. I think the first tool I used was very inconvenient, and then I used a different tool that worked a lot better, so that's why I'm using two of them. There's no real reason why I actually have them both out, just in case you're wondering. But after I've separated my clay, this is whenever I start to prepare them into the shapes that I'm going to be using and assembling together. I'm just going to ball up my clay, and I do this for every single one except one part, and you'll see further in the video. I'm just going to rub it out on the board, just get it nice and even, or as close to even as possible. I always go in after I've assembled everything and try and refine it further. I don't try and look for perfect circles. A lot of my work is based on the female and male form, so I do like to keep a bit of an organic shape and form to them. But I'm going to continue rolling these out. I'm going to have 4 parts to this sculpture, so I'm going to be rolling out 3 balls, and then the 4th part is going to be our contrasting piece that will contain flat edges and smooth surface. And how I do that is just by, as you can see, just smacking it onto the board, create nice flat smooth surfaces. And what I'll do is I'll keep repeating that until I get the desired shape I want. And I really like the shape here that formed. It almost looks like an orange wedge. I feel like I could play a lot with that with glazes. So I'm going to keep that shape. And what I'll do after is I'll go in with a paddle and use a paddle to really spank out any grooves or fingerprints that I've left in. And once I've got all of that prepared, I will now start to hollow out the pieces. Not too much though. The clay is still very wet, so I'm only going in and digging a bit just so I can get the right amount of clay out to help the piece dry a bit quicker. Once the clay is at a leather hard stage, maybe just before that, then I will fully hollow them out. But just to make sure the clay doesn't collapse in on itself while I'm handling it, I'm just going to hollow it out a bit and let it dry further, just before the leather hard stage. And as I'm hollowing these pieces out, any excess clay that I remove, I know it's a lot and it looks like a lot of waste, but I will actually be storing this clay to be reused at a later stage. I'll maybe make that into slip. I could probably colour it or make it into a whole lump of clay again if I reabsorb the water from the slip, but it will be reused. And once I'm done hollowing this, I'm just going to smooth the inside out just to make sure there's no air bubbles and make sure that the clay is consistent all the way around. And I'll do that with each one just to make sure that I don't end up with any holes whenever I'm assembling the pieces, that any of those gaps or those thinner parts don't break and form holes under pressure. And now to assemble. So using pieces that I prepared earlier, I'm going to show you how I assemble the pieces, or at least whenever using serendipity, as I do normally have a sketch of what I'm wanting to make set out, but this time I'm just going to play around a bit and that's why I have my reference here, just to help me keep on track with the overall shape that I'm hoping to achieve. But I'm just going to assemble the shapes here and roll them about a bit on the board, putting them on different angles and different parts of the overall piece, just to see what I haven't already thought of, and that helps keep a constant progression of different shapes that I come up with. And in doing so, I'm then able to isolate any poses that I may have found while doing this technique and using them in future pieces that I don't really have any idea in mind for beforehand. But I'll keep moving the individual parts around until I find a suitable pose, and then what I'll do is move on to the permanent assembly phase, and that is whenever I secure all the 4 parts together and smooth them and blend them together, making the whole piece one. So to completely assemble this part, all I'm doing is gathering clay from the individual parts and pushing them up towards the seams where each part joins together to the whole piece. I plan on going in afterwards to refine, and so instead of just removing the excess clay afterwards, what I'm doing is pulling any excess clay that doesn't contribute to the overall shape and using that to help seal the piece together. The goal is to really blend as well as possible all the joining seams to make sure that there's no cracks or any gaps where air bubbles could form or split the clay in the kiln. And I'll just keep doing that and pushing more clay into the seams and going round and refining and just making sure the whole piece is even and that the joins are made well and flush. And once I've achieved that, then I can take you on to the next stage where I burnish the piece. This isn't going to be done on this individual piece. I actually have one left out already that's ready to go. And as you can see here, I've got a spoon. A spoon is what I use to burnish a piece. What it does is it just flattens the clay and gives it a very smooth reflective surface, and you get a really nice polished effect. And I really like doing this because it really exaggerates the contrast between the round forms and the flat surface, especially whenever it's exposed to light. The roundness of the piece would absorb the light in a soft way, and then you've got the contrast of the flat surface that will reflect the light. And here, just listen to how smooth I've got this surface. And I'll show you how the light reflects off the smooth surface of the clay. And whenever you rub your finger against it, it sounds so smooth, just like you would rub your finger around a wet glass, that really squeaky clean sound. It's great. But I'll go in and do my final touch-ups, making sure all the seals and the joins are clean. Any part that needs burnished is burnished, and that any wee extra fragments of clay haven't gotten stuck or aren't making the piece look scraggly. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of this video. I want to thank you all again for taking the time to watch it. I hope you learned something a bit new about me and my practice, and maybe some new techniques yourselves. Maybe you've never actually seen some of the techniques applied in the video done in ceramics before. Maybe you're completely new to it and I found something just a wee bit interesting and I learned something new today. But again, thank you all for taking the time to watch. I very much appreciate it, and I hope to see you all again soon.